race leader is Danny's. He's just backed off a little bit on the last lap or so. I think he's okay. I think he is going to take his second win of the day. This independent team, remember, it's not a factory-backed team. Team Dynamics, who run the operation, they've built these cars to their own design, their own designers, their own engineers. They've put it all together. Race number 2, round 5 of the championship, goes to Danny's, with his teammate Neal finishing in second place. Third goes to Ivan Muller, fourth to James Pinkford.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Tegiwa YouTube channel. Today we're going to be featuring our 2005 Honda Integra DC5, the ex-British Touring Car Championship car. It's a bit of a mouthful, but we got there. So here it is, just behind me, pretty bright, can't really miss it. Let's start by taking a closer look at sort of the history and racing pedigree that this car has. So it was used in the 2005 championship. Team Dynamics Motorsport is who the car belonged to, and they actually exploited a loophole in the regulations. So nowhere in the championship regulations did they say that you have to use a car that's manufactured in the UK. So they went to Japan and they brought over 4 Honda Integra chassis and turned 4 of them into race cars. Now, by doing this, they did miss most of the pre-season testing, so they had no idea whether it was going to be a successful car or not. But it was like one of the most successful cars in modern day touring car history. It actually won its first race at Donington Park that season in the first round, so it's pretty impressive. As I mentioned, there were 4 cars that were in the UK, four chassis. This is chassis 2, sat behind me, and as confirmed by Team Dynamics principal at the time, Neal, this is the only remaining car in the UK at the minute. So it's pretty cool fact, and makes it pretty rare if you're into sort of unicorn cars and stuff. There were 3 drivers in the team in 2005. So we had Neal, the Team Dynamics principal, Dan Eves, who drove this particular car, and Gareth Howe. So yeah, let's talk a little bit about the 2005 championship. So it's 2005. Saw an amazing season for the DC5 platform in BTCC and made it one of the most successful cars ever in the modern day era in racing. Not this DC5, but the team as a whole. They won the Drivers' Championship, they won the Team Championship, they won the Independent Championship and the Independent Teams Championship, which was 4 out of the 5. The only one that it didn't win was the Manufacturers' Championship, but they weren't actually eligible for that because it wasn't a Honda-backed car at the time. So yeah, everything that was on offer to win, they pretty much did win. And this actual car, chassis number 2, drove by Dan Eves at Thruxton. He won all 3 races in one day. He won the first race, the second race, and then they had a reverse grid format for the third race. So he actually started the race from the back of the grid in race 3, and he stormed the field, and he went from the back of the grid, and he won the third race, which made him the first ever touring car driver to do that. He also set the fastest lap of the day that day as well. So, I mean, this car was just so fast. So the very car behind me actually won 5 races that season. It set 5 fastest laps, and it finished 3rd in the championship, just behind Ivan Muller and the championship winner, Neal. So after the 2005 campaign, the car moved hands and it went over to Motorbase Performance in 06 to 07. The orange livery came off and it was replaced by a black and pink livery. It was then in competition in touring cars until 2011, when the new era of touring cars took over. In the last season in 2011, it even finished as high as 7th, which isn't bad for a 6-year-old car and just shows how fast this car was. So after 2011, the car sort of went into private collections. I think it was 2016 that the car came up for auction, and then a guy bought it and he aimed to race it in like the Super Touring Championships and the older sort of stuff where it was eligible. It then came up for auction in 2020, and that's when us guys at Tegiwa Imports, we purchased the car. We kind of brought it, it's a bit of a collector's piece, but it does work, as you'll see in a minute. And it came to Tegiwa Imports and it sits in our showroom and it looks mighty fine, but we have done track days in it. we've competed in time attack in it, but it's kind of one of those where it's such an iconic item, and it's not like spare parts are easy to come by. We'll show you the spare parts, there's loads of them on offer, but if you smash this into a wall, you're not getting a new front bumper for it or a new wing. So yeah, it kind of is a collector's piece in that respect. But let's head over to the car and take a closer look at what makes it so special. So this is a BTC spec car. This was the first generation of cars after the Super Touring era. A lot of you may remember like the old Honda Accords, the Volvo 850, those kind of cars. That was Super Touring, and then sort of the Civic and the Integra replaced those because people were spending loads of money when they were doing Super Touring, like millions of pounds. So they brought in sort of a way to control the costs and make it a little bit cheaper. Not that they're cheaper, because I guess this would have cost £100,000–200,000 to build, sort of speculation, but it was kind of like you can do what you want with it really, as long as you meet the regulations. So as you can see, we've got a Honda K20 2-litre naturally aspirated engine. This would have been built by Neal Engineering at the time, and it would have been built to comply with like the strict regulations from the Touring Car Championship. It would have produced about 275 horsepower, which isn't loads today, but 17 years ago in motorsport, it was quite a lot. And in a race car like this, when it's all stripped out, that's sort of everything you need to be at the front of the grid. It has been rebuilt, this engine, before we bought it in its previous ownership, at a staggering cost of £29,000, which we've actually got the invoice for. So yeah, a lot of money, and it was built to spec, but this would have been expected to do, I think a touring car season was about 5,000 kilometres a season. So it would have had its build and then should be good to go for the duration of the season. The K20, it's mated to an X-Track sequential 6-speed gearbox. That's also been refurbished, and that cost £10,000 to do. Yeah, so quite a lot of money that's been spent on it, which is great for us. When we took ownership of it, and you know, it gave us the peace of mind that we can go send it around the track. So the first thing that catches my eye when we're looking at the engine bay is this awesome carbon intake manifold. Obviously this isn't something that you could really buy off the shelf. Like I say, it was built by Neal to comply with the regulations at the time. Here we've got this carbon air intake. The scoop goes right down behind the back of the bumper and draws in as much cold air as it possibly can. And then it goes into the Gen V throttle body, which has a regulation restrictor plate on it. Now, all the cars would have ran a restrictor plate like this, and this was so that every car made the same sort of power, and no one could, you know, have 500 horsepower because their car was super duper. And then in the inlet manifold here, it's got a plate on it at the back, which we'll show you in a minute. And this is to do with harmonics. So the engine actually gets just the right amount of air and stops the air pulsing in the plenum. So, you know, yes, it only makes 275 horsepower, but the engineering that's gone into this is absolutely mental. So no expense has been spared with this, and that gave us good peace of mind when we were purchasing the car, that we could go do a few track days and do what we wanted with it and use it as it was meant to be. Another sort of, you wouldn't get on a road car, is this engine has a 1.5 litre dry sump, so it does require a team to prepare and start the car. Because the tolerances are so tight in the engine, we actually have it's called a pre-water heater. So this plugs into the car, and it has to be warmed up for 30 minutes before we can even think about turning it on. So you can't just turn your key, there is no key, and drive it to the shops. It's, you know, a fully built race car. Hey guys, welcome to the cockpit. So this is the interior of the vehicle. As you can see, there's not much Integra left of this car. Probably the biggest thing that resembles an Integra interior right now is the dashboard, and that's been chopped up, it's been flocked. It's pretty special in here. To think that the guys were racing in anger with 30 other cars surrounding them is mental. But yeah, let's talk a bit about the spec. So everything as it was in 2005, other than obviously safety regulations. We've got things like updated harnesses, we've got a new fire extinguisher, that kind of thing. They have to be in date to go racing. Behind me, we've got a massive fuel cell, that's where the fuel goes. Obviously it wouldn't have gone where it would have gone like the OEM car because the weight distribution. The whole fuel system with the tank and the lines, they've been completely refurbished again by the previous owner. We've got a 3-point AP Racing air jack system, so we've got a jack there and a jack there and a jack just behind me, so the guys can just put a bottle of air on the back, up the car goes, and they can work on it quickly in the pit lane. The roll cage is pretty comprehensive. I mean, this would have been an absolute custom one-off job that we've got here, built to comply with the regulations at the time. We've got caging here to prevent any side impact. We've got caging all down there, obviously above our head, and also we've got caging going along the bottom of the floor as well. As you know, if you'll have seen British touring cars, these cars are prone to going on the roof and getting hit this, that way, and every other. We've got our shifter here. It's not a handbrake. It's pretty firm. You have to really give it some to get up and down the gears. We've got an AP Racing pedal box just below my feet here. Again, completely refurbed. We've got a Momo steering wheel, which we can take off and show you. That's just in front of me. And then we've got all the information that the driver could need on his screen. It's like a digital display here. There's a number of lights going on and buttons. We've got power steering, ignition, indicators, your wipers and lights. So yeah, that pretty much sums up the interior. Not much to say about it other than, yeah, it's pretty race car in here, and it's not very DC5-esque really. So that sums up the interior. Let's talk a little bit about the features on the outside of the vehicle. So let's start with the brakes, suspension. The suspension is some Penske, not sure how you say it, coilovers. They've got an external reservoir so they can run more oil and they can operate better for a longer period of time. The brakes, obviously, it's a Team Dynamics Motorsport car, so all the cars, they all run Team Dynamics, sort of 1.2 wheels, but they are centre lock, and the car comes with this massive torque wrench. It's absolutely huge, and that gets the wheel off and on. Sitting behind those wheels, you've got a set of AP Racing, British Touring car spec brakes, big stoppers. Obviously, all those cars in front of you, you're going to want to anchor on, so they take care of the job. The car comes with a set of slicks. We've got a spare set of slicks, and we've got a set of wets as well, because obviously British weather, we don't know what the weather's going to throw at us. Again, the car does look like a DC5 from the outside, but not a DC5 as we know it. It's got this really aggressive body kit on it, and that would be a one-off thing that the team would have developed at the start of the season. It would have been made from fiberglass, and yeah, I mean, as you can see, the side of the doors are basically shelves. It'll be much wider from factory, but the aero kit would have been made to meet with regulations once again. So there would be things that they could do, like getting air into the brakes and into the front of the car, but yeah, you can't go too crazy because you're only allowed to do so much with it. Again, the rear wing has been replaced from the OEM unit to a carbon one, that would save weight and also push the back of the car into the ground. So we'll put a picture up of the bottom of the car, because the bottom of the car isn't like a road going DC5 at all. There's not really a subframe front or rear, they're just some big arms that hold all the suspension together, and the rear anti-roll bar actually is just completely straight. You can see it in the boot, it just cuts, they've just cut away from each wheel arch. And yeah, I guess that's what you can do when you've got like not a factory built race car, but a purpose built race car at the pinnacle of British motorsport. So one of my favourite things about this car is it's not a K20 like any other. The sound that this car produces is absolutely iconic. Obviously the exhaust is completely custom. When we ran it at Alton Park, when this thing went round, it just drew in like everyone that was watching. It just sounds absolutely epic, and you know, every now and then it gets so hot it does a little flame, and yeah, it just sounds absolutely mental, this thing does. So I've personally not driven this car, but my boss Luke, he's driven it, and basically the clutch is like yay big and the flywheel is non-existent, so this car just loves to rev. It's pretty easy to stall, but once you get going it really comes alive. And Luke's feedback was that, you know, it's got such an aggressive diff, and on the slick tyres it offers so much in the way of grip that you can, you know, feel like you're really going when you're not really like going that fast. But yeah, I mean, it must just be incredible to drive this thing in anger and on the limit in an actual race, door-to-door racing. It's worth noting that this car, it does come with an FIA/HSCC identity form and passport. It also has a British Touring Car Championship logbook as well, so all the correct documentation's there. It's pretty cool to see, not something you get with like just your V5 in a road car. Okay, so that sums up our video on our Honda Integra DC5. Thank you once again for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe. If you do like our features, we have plenty of videos on our fast fleet, race cars, and some of our customer cars as well. So please do make sure you check them out. Another thing as well, this car is actually for sale at the minute, at the time of filming. So if you are interested, there'll be a link below to the car, to the blogs, and yeah, drop us a message if you are interested. Again, thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.